Um, so hey, I am Latifah. I am the project manager of a project of UCOS called Decolonize VUB, which is a project of UCOS at VUB on decolonization, where we kind of address the Eurocentric character of knowledge, of worldview that students have, and that is upheld by the university as an institute. And at the other hand, we also really try to create space and try to kind of create kind of a safe space at this university for racialized students. And that means that we give them opportunities to organize things, to organize themselves, to create that like safer community for themselves. So that's my job. But then on the other hand, I also am still a student. I've just graduated at the VUB, so I'm an alumni officially, I believe. But I now study African Studies at the University of Ghent. And yeah, so that's pretty much what I do. And so for my work of We Decolonize VUB, I also help in research, and one of the research projects I'm working on with Tundé is this project on critical Black ethnic studies.
So I'm Tundé, and I am a lecturer at St. Lucas, Antwerp. I lecture in U.S. popular visual culture, and so I do that. And then next to that, I'm also doing this research as an independent researcher, based on an article that I wrote in the book. That was published together with VUB and BIRMM on migration, equality, and racism. And the book, the article, the chapter was, the article was looking at is it possible or is it necessary to set up a kind of critical ethnic studies master's at somewhere like the VUB, and is it possible? Actually, it's a question. So that's what we're doing now. We're doing the research to look at, what will a critical liberation / ethnic studies look like in a place like the VUB, and what is the role of the community or communities outside of the VUB in shaping that so that it is a decolonized reality. So this project is basically looking at how we can create a master program that really tries to start from the foundation that there is not enough archiving of people's lives that are people that are racialized, marginalized within the Belgian society, as an extension of that European society. And so this project kind of really starts from there. And how do we also take into consideration the structures that already exist? Not only a place like the VUB, but also the African Museum, and really look at it from a critical perspective, and try to find ways to make sure that we create spaces where people's lives, people's stories can be archived. And then on top of that, really try to use it as a way to function as a decolonial tool, and potentially further than just decolonizing or anti-racism, into something that is sustained and sustainable, as well as something that continues to challenge how we see structures and how we see patriarchy, actually. So hopefully we're working towards a master, setting up this master. So that's what this project is really about.
Yeah, so like Tundé perfectly summarized. That's what the project's really about. And then I think the students component, I believe, plays a very important role. So we create this masters for the students, because the students at the university, I hate that word, that's just what they are, they're the stakeholders. But we really, like Tundé just said previously, try to kind of start from like bottom up. We try to have input from the communities outside the VUB, but also within the VUB, really to have the students' input. What can this master mean to them? How can this contribute to the VUB then being kind of a safer space for them? And that's why we've decided to do these focus groups with the students. That is also how my part as a project manager of a student project comes in, to kind of really safeguard that this is a master for these racialized students.
So yeah, research is important because we want to start on a foundation. We don't want to kind of go from the assumption that we know it all, because we don't know it all. And there's so much already out there. As I said earlier, one of the things that we kind of are, of course, looking at is the fact that we're standing on the shoulders of those that came before us, and those that came before us gave us a rich kind of archive of knowledge. Some of them are archived and a lot of them aren't. But if we take kind of a transatlantic approach, the W.B. Du Bois, the Leopold Senghor, Sylvia Winter approach, where we are using knowledge not only from Europe, from the U.S. or from Jamaica, then we realize that there's so much that's already been done. In Ghana, for example, that has actually a long history of Pan-African, not transatlantic, but Pan-African approaches to understanding these similar questions. So anyway, so if we use this rich knowledge of, this rich kind of possibility of knowledge that's out there, I think it will only make the work that we're doing more not sustainable, but stronger. It'll make it stronger. So research is important to give us a better understanding and a better grasp of what approaches we want to use and what direction we want to go into in pursuing this. What are the objectives of this? Well, the ultimate objective is to create a master. We don't know exactly what it would be called yet, but something like the Master in Critical Liberation Ethnic Studies. But we still have to decide. That's part of what the work of the focus group will be, is deciding what the name will be. So that's one objective. But I think that other objectives are what Latifah has already said very well, kind of, creating these decolonial approaches, thinking about space, thinking about the institution, thinking about the role of communities in terms of creating knowledge, and what we do with that knowledge, who's archiving that knowledge. So an objective would be to start to consolidate that archiving, all right, and make it known to current generation and future generations about what happened and what is happening. And there's already people doing that work, one really good example is the Black Archive in Amsterdam, who are doing their work. And I'm sure, and I know, but I don't know the names of organizations and individuals who are doing the work here too, but we just have to find ways outside of institutions like the Africa Museum or whatever museum to start consolidating those archives and saying, this is where we came from, this is what we do, and this is how we've done it, so that people know that there's a rich history behind it.
Yeah, to make it realistic, the goal, the ultimate goal is to create this master. But that's the long-term goal. But of course, we have short-term goals also to kind of work towards that master. It's also kind of, I don't want to call it trial and error, but you kind of have to try some things and see what the results are to then implement those results in a final goal. So yes, the ultimate goal is that master, but that road is long and that journey is very long, and in that journey we will have other more short-term goals that will include maybe some modules or things like that. So it's also kind of like it's a long journey to kind of trust the process and to take our time, because what we're doing is new. It has been done before at other universities and other places, but in this context, it's new. So to really take our time to do it the right way and to take our time also on this research, to have that input and to see, okay, what's the research, what are the results, and then go back and work on those results. And so, yeah, I think in doing that, we should really take our time with the eye on the ball, on the prize, on the ball, not on the ball, on the price. But to also for ourselves, set some short-term goals to keep being productive,
Yeah, so they'll be realized with, hopefully through allies within the institution, but also allies outside in the communities, but also indeed setting really kind of short-term goals where we are working towards. For example, now we're doing research, doing the folks who are doing the interview. So this is a 6 months trajectory, something like that. And the short-term goal here is producing a report that says, okay, this is what happened, and kind of encapsulating everything that we've done in the last few months. So that's a short-term goal. So, we have to continue to make sure that you said it very well, Latifah, we continue to set short-term goals of saying, okay, what is next? Potentially what's next is creating modules, within already existing masters that focuses on themes that we are working on around setting up this masters. So yeah, that's definitely a way that we're trying to realize this objectives, but this work is often not possible without funding. So that's a real way that we need to do this work, is to look for funding outside of the university, in other places that funds this kind of work. But very important are the allies. The allies and accomplices that will allow this sort of work to blossom at the same time, and hopefully to allow it to kind of germinate in other places, in other ways too. Right? The objective will be reached by the funding, by having allies, and by realizing that people are doing this work. How do we find synergies to allow this work to germinate?
I think the partners are defined by who we approach in this research. So we have certain professors at the VUB that are doing the work, but it's within a big institution and sometimes it's not being seen. That, for example, have some decolonial approaches in the way they teach, or have interesting material that they use. So professors, on the one hand, are our partners, but the students are also partners. And then outside of VUB, people from within the communities. So, like we said, we've had interviews with Saudi Sand Fleet. We're planning one with Naima Shakari, and then people from Middelveld, yeah. So our partnerships is on many levels. So it's on institutional level, for example, the professors, but also the students outside the VUB. So we really did that to have this multifaceted partners, because, like we said, our approach, we want to be kind of decolonial, but we have to be aware that we're still working within an institution. You know, there's a reality that we're working. This is not a master that we're working outside an institution. So we have to work within that reality. And that means that you need those professors that and let's be honest, we hope to have those professors as partners to kind of, when it's needed, to have those allies higher up that will make the master possible. We can kind of, count on them to do, that type of work. And then on the other hand, we have the students, because, it has to, of course, attract students. So then we hope to have that. And then to also not be too institutionalized within the university, to have this partner outside the university from Middelveld, for example, who is one of them? Nia Sharma, example, Nia Sharma from Hand in Hand, and some others that we're doing interviews with, to kind of also see, like Tundé said, to the synergy that we're going to make within people that are already working on these subjects. So we have different partners on many levels, because we believe that's the best way, again, to link it back to the previous question, to reach our goals, to not only work within an institution but also outside. But the reality is that we are inside an institution, so we have to make partners also inside it to kind of make it possible.
So of course, without the support of people like folks from BIRMM, folks from RIA, gender studies here at the VUB and the Fatima Manisi Lehrstuhl, specifically people like Ilka Adam and Leshka, this wouldn't be possible, and Karen Stellas, of course, and specifically also funding from BICAS, the Urban Studies Department, specifically working with Bas and Lena. So those are the institutional partners, concretely, who are, because it's, had this urban studies grants that is making this research, this part of the research possible. So, kind of building on that and finding allies, other allies within the institutions, if they're still there, is kind of what we want to do in terms of finding partners. Yeah.